Hello and welcome back to the Kokino podcast. Today I'm going to talk to you about a webcomic that I really like that not a lot of people have heard about. Another thing that not a lot of people have heard about. I know I've probably said that before a lot. But there's another thing. It's a webcomic called Life on Forbez. But before I explain the webcomic and kind of explain my history with how I found this comic, so way back in the day, I was really a big fan of Dragon Ball Z, and I wanted to find like websites where I could look up more things like fan art and music videos and whatever. I wanted to find everything I could. I eventually stumbled across this website called madcool.com, which had along with the fan art and music videos and clips and character biographies and whatever, it also had fan comics. And one of those fan comics was a series that basically takes all of the Dragon Ball Z characters and tries to put them into a peanut style, like takes all of the Dragon Ball Z characters, makes them into like little kids, and tries to make this peanut style Charlie Brown kind of comic with Dragon Ball Z characters. So it takes Goku and makes him like a new kid in school. It takes Krillin and makes him like Krillin. Krillin's kind of like the butt of the joke who gets beat up all the time for no reason whatsoever. So that's what he happens in the comic. It takes Vegeta and makes him into the bully, the school bully. And it just takes all these characters and just tries to integrate them in like a Charlie Brown way. And it has like, like that stereotypical webcomic format where like every single panel is kind of like a joke that leads to a punchline, that kind of thing. So he made this webcomic, and he also made a bunch of other Dragon Ball Z fan comics. He made another one called the Tomoko storyline. It was a Dragon Ball Z Christmas comic where Vegeta and Goku's family and Vegeta family were building snowmen, and then Vegeta or Gohan built this really big snowman, but then Vegeta was like, ha ha ha, ha, that's nothing compared to Super Snowman. And then they look behind them and then they see Super Snowman. They see this giant snowman that's like 50 feet tall behind them, and it's like it's just a silly story. He wrote a bunch of silly Dragon Ball Z webcomics. But then he decided, you know what? Maybe I should make my own webcomic series. And so he started this series called Life on Forbez. Now, Life on Forbez is a series, it's a comedy sci-fi series that is about an alien boy and his alien mother. They leave their home planet because the alien mother, apparently, she had a job on her home planet to go to a new planet called Earth and populate it with the correct species so that they would evolve into like sentient species eventually. And the species was supposed to be a lizard species, but she ended up messing up so bad that she made it into like a mammalian ape-like species that turned out to be humans. And so she messed up really bad on that job. And this planet that she lives on, which is called Nordia, she is a Nordian, and she lives on the planet Nordia. This planet is such a boring planet that there is never any noteworthy news. To the point where the fact that she messed up this bad was like it was the only noteworthy and interesting news to anybody on this planet. So everybody knew about her mistake and everybody kind of like laughed at her all the time for it. And so she got sick of that, and she grabbed her son and got on the next the next ship that off the planet and took it to like the another planet and moved to another planet just to get away from all that shame. And so they go on a ship and they land on this new planet, which is called Forbez. Now, Forbez is not a planet that's home to a particular species. It's more of like a melting pot of a bunch of different alien species. And actually, it's kind of interesting. This comic has like it's a very silly webcomic. It's not really to be taken too seriously, but it does do some interesting world building. So this planet Forbez, it actually started off as a planet with a bunch of different alien species on it, but a certain members of these alien species, certain species were more powerful than others because there were certain alien species on this planet that had superpowers. Like they had like some of them had the ability to like psychically move things with their minds, and other people's had the ability to like grow giant tentacle arms that could destroy mountains, that kind of thing. And so all these superpowered creatures kind of ruled the planet. But then, like sometime in the middle of that, this new species, this new alien species called the Omnis, which to describe what the Omnis look like, they are basically the stereotypical aliens that you would find in Roswell, New Mexico, or whatever. They're the gray aliens, like the X-Files aliens, the aliens that have like the gray body and like the black eyes, the solid black eyes, and the weird looking mouth. Those aliens, that's what they look like. And so they come onto this planet, and they with a specific technology that has the ability, they have the technology that can make them like disable superpowers, basically. The technology sends a wave into the air that goes into the brains of all the aliens on this planet and prevents the superpowered aliens from using their superpowers. And so they activate this technology, which causes a lot of mayhem and trouble. And in the midst of that mayhem, they wage war on this planet. And like there's a long war that goes on, and they eventually conquer this planet. And once they conquer this planet, they're kind of a species that they're like communist kind of. They're all for one for all, that kind of thing, and they all stick together. And if an Omni wants to do something, all the other Omnis have to team up with him in order to make that thing happen. So eventually they conquer this planet Forbez, and prevent all the superpowered aliens from using their superpowers. And once they conquer the planet, they build their own infrastructure over it. Like their own sewage system, their own road system, their own bus system, train system, their own buildings, their own jobs, they build their own infrastructure in their own economy. And like they let the other alien species live on this planet, but they're the ones that are running this planet. And so, once they do that's set up. Now, there's this other alien species that they actually are relying on in order to do that, to do this whole running the planet thing. Because in order to power all of their technology, they have to use a specific type of plant that they don't know how to grow, and they don't know how to care for, and they don't know how to maintain. And the only alien species that know how to do this are an alien species called the Nomadites, who are plant experts, and plant experts alone. The Nomadites have this very specific plant that they can grow that can power all of the Omni technology. So, and the way that they said the Nomadites grow this plant is that they would put this plant on the back of a Nomadite child, and as that child grows up, he would keep that plant on his back for his entire life until he grew into an adult, and the plant would grow with him into an adult. And that's the only way to get the plant to work. And so they have the tradition of doing this with their kids. They have the plants, the kids eventually grow into adults, and eventually they give their plant to the Omnis to power their devices. So the Omnis have this relationship with the Nomadites that if a Nomadite wants to do something, an Omni has to do it, because they are relying completely on the Nomadites. So like they have that kind of relationship. But all the other alien species on this planet don't have that kind of relationship. Most of them are just like being ruled over by the Nomadites, but they don't really care because they're just going about business as usual. The Nomadites are really just kind of running the infrastructure, and they're not really bothering anybody. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of like the world building aspect of this story. And there's a lot more world building too. I mean, like there's a specific alien species that lost the war to the Nomadites, and they were like a prideful alien species, and they were so shamed by losing the war that they cut their hands off of their arms, and then they would ritually cut their hands off of their arms, like as their children were born, over and over again, like for thousands of years, until eventually they ended up, evolution took over, and they ended up with no hands. And they're like a no-hand species now on this planet. But anyways, yeah, a lot of interesting world building, and but it's not, once again, it is a comedy series. It is not a series that you would want to take seriously. It is basically, it treats the world building with a grain of salt, kind of, and it has a lot of world building jokes too. Like there's this one point in the comic where a bunch of different aliens are waiting in line for a bus, and the bus is taking forever, and they're very impatient at this point because they've been waiting for the bus is supposed to have been there like half an hour ago, and they're still waiting for it. And eventually the bus does arrive there, but it turns out that there is only one space available on the bus, and so all of the aliens in the back of the line just angrily just walk away from it, saying, "Oh, this is a stupid Omni technology, this stupid bus, this is a stupid planet. Why do we even live on this planet?" And there's all these aliens walking away, but one of the aliens that walks away angrily, hoping to get on the bus, happens to be like this 19-foot tall giant alien who just strides away with giant footsteps. And then there's like a joke where like one of the other aliens says, "How is that guy even going to get on the bus?" Because the bus is just a regular sized bus. So it's like a silly series that kind of semi takes itself seriously, but semi just like inserts a bunch of jokes. It's like a bunch of alien species, all different kinds on this planet, and the jokes that ensue from, or the tension, the comedic tension that ensues because of this. Anyways, but the main characters are, once again, the alien space boy who is a Nordian, Par, and his mother, Nock. They come on this planet after, the shame of her not being able to create the correct species on Earth. They come to this planet and they try to establish their life there. And it basically covers the hijinks that ensue while they do that. And they meet a bunch of other characters, and it's a very fun series. It's a very, I would say that it's actually, the sad thing about it is the series has been canceled, but the author has actually started a new series in the same world, so it might be worth checking that out. The comedy of this series is kind of like, it starts off kind of weird and silly, sometimes funny, but sometimes not. But eventually, the author, who I think his name is CDC, and that stands for Clarence D. Cassaway or something like that, the author eventually, like, his comedic skills keep on growing and growing as he continues making this comic. By the time he reaches the end section of this comic, he has gotten way better at drawing and way better at comedy, to the point where the comic is an amazing comic. But at this point, he has been like on and off on this comic for like he's gone like 6 months without adding a panel, and then he adds one panel after 6 months, and then like he goes 6 months again without adding a panel, and then eventually he did cancel the comic. But I still think that it's worth reading what he has made, because there are moments in this comic that have genuinely made me laugh, and that's very hard to do, especially when I'm alone. It's not that easy to make me laugh with just a regular comic strip. So I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't, or if you haven't heard of it. I don't think anyone's heard of this comic, but I would highly recommend checking it out. The only place that you can actually find it, because the comic was canceled, and he used to have it uploaded on a website called Forbez.net, but that website got taken down. So the only place you can find it is there's actually a DeviantArt page where some dude decided to upload all the comic pages so that they're viewable to the public. I will leave a link to that in the description of this video. I will also leave a link to his new comic series that takes place in the same world. I think it's on one of those comic websites. I don't remember what it is, but he has it on the mobile comic website and also on the PC comic website. So I'm going to link both of those too. And check it out if you want. It's pretty cool. Well, this has been fun, but this is the end of the Kokino podcast for now. I will see you guys next time. Have a good life.